And obviously, the greatest market out there and the largest market, as you've said, is the US defense market. So being able to crack that market is a huge milestone for the company.
archTIS is on track to start collaborating with the US Department of Defense. The archTIS NC Protect passed a major evaluation milestone and will now see 1,000 users adopting the technology. For more on this, I'm now joined by archTIS Managing Director and CEO Daniel Lai. Daniel, good to have you here with us today. This is such a breakthrough. You're breaking into the US defense market, essentially the largest in the world. How important is this for archTIS?
Well, thanks for having me, Rod. It's incredibly important. Obviously, Australian companies, particularly in the defence market, obviously do well here in Australia, which we've done pretty well, and we've been very focused on the Australian market. But Australian Department of Defence is only 1% or less than 1% of the entire global expenditure for the defence market globally. And obviously, the greatest market out there and the largest market, as you've said, is the US defense market. So being able to crack that market is a huge milestone for the company. And most importantly, we see our level of growth substantially increase as we exploit that market potential.
Daniel, you're kickstarting this collaboration with 1,000 users, 1,000 licenses, essentially, but that's set to grow over the coming months. Walk us through how you're anticipating this to unfold.
Well, I have said to one of our key investors that it's the best small deal I've ever done. So the first 1,000 licenses, which is to a subcontractor to the US Department of Defense, is essentially to initiate the planning for the rollout of multiple licenses to the US Department of Defense. So that first 1,000 licenses is how do we prepare to roll out the next a multi-phased approach to the on the warfighter network for Microsoft Department of Defense 365. So that's a pretty big marketplace. Where we're talking there is the first phase, we are expecting about 150,000 users. And then the next phase, this particular agency, we can see a stretch of horizontal integration up to several hundred thousands of licenses and has the potential to go even further because the US Department of Defense in the end has approximately about 4 million users across it.
Daniel, you're wrapping up the financial year on a very high note. This is a major milestone for the company. What can investors expect for the rest of the year and the coming weeks?
Well, I think that as we approach this, we're very excited about the opportunity. I think that a lot of the hard work has been done. So the US Department of Defense took us through a very rigorous trial. We did a proof of concept with them. We had to go through a lot of compliance tests, security, accreditation, and now this first 1,000 license gives us what's called an authority to operate, which commences that rollout. And of course, the US Department of Defense itself has multiple Microsoft 365 environments. So we see this as really a massive impetus for growth through FY26 and just the start of our growth journey. Now, and of course, then there's the defence industrial base in the US and here in Australia and obviously in the UK, and they all use the same patterns. So this is a real milestone for us to say we are the data-centric security for people using SharePoint Online in Microsoft 365 environments, and essentially, hopefully, that extension into those teams, but in multiple use cases, which means the ability to grow this network growth effect and have the US Department of Defense as a reference client, unbelievable for the company. So, we've worked very hard over a number of years to break open this market. Not many of Australian companies, particularly in the IT and ASX listed, get there. So we're very optimistic about it. There's a little way to go yet, but we think in the coming months we'll start to see those orders come through.
It's quite a lot for investors to stay tuned for. archTIS Managing Director and CEO Daniel Lai. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.